It is a very good morning and welcome to SlyMedia TV. Welcome to this episode of our Current Affairs, where we bring you issues that are topical every now and then. We deal with various topics that are topical, and we have decided that this morning we are going to be speaking on elections. There are people who are saying it is better that as a country we suspend elections and focus on developing the economy, developing this country, because they say elections are actually one of the factors that cause divisions among our people. We are going to engineer Jabulani Midzi. He is here representing a section of our citizens that is in the diaspora, and we want to find out what it is that they see when they say, let's suspend elections and focus on developing our country. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going straight into the discussion.
When you think of having the best, world-class, hassle-free, corporate or personal events, think Real Sound, offering a wide range of products and services with different sizes for LED and TV screens to suit different occasions. There's state-of-the-art PA systems that give you real sound. When it comes to event lighting, Real Sound is the best, not to mention the Sparkles machines. Want to appear in another planet? Try the cloud and smoke machines. There's also top executive furniture for corporate events. For all your virtual meetings, look no further. Get in touch for a free quote for your next event. Contact Real Sound via email or phone number. Real Sound, just passion.
With 2023 beckoning and the election frenzy in the country becoming more stronger each day, politicians are increasingly becoming visible, making more and more promises.
Primary education from grade 1 to grade 7 must be provided completely free.
Every village, in 3 years, there will be a ball in Orana solar.
Patinongopinda tunhu chokutanga kukudzorerai pamakasiyiwa navamugabe. Toda kudzorera maticha kwavaiva kwokuti ticha aizikanwa semunhu aitenga zikoti zheadmaster nenyaya yokuti anga ane udzamu nejiginiki.
But are these promises going to be fulfilled? The electorate is pondering on who to vote for in the council, parliamentary, and even presidential election. We bring you the candidate, where we interrogate their plans, their manifestos, their programs, to make sure that we give you information to make a choice on who to vote for. The candidate on SlyMedia TV every Wednesday from 6 p.m. Welcome back to SlyMedia TV. If you're just joining or you haven't joined, let me say to those that are on the show now, please go ahead and invite others to be part of this conversation, this discussion that is very interesting, where we are dealing with the issue of sanctions. There are people who think that it is important that as a country we suspend the elections. We want to know what you think about this topic, what you think about the discussion we are having. So go ahead, send in your comments, send in your questions. We are going to be reading your comments and questions to the panelists that I have on the show, and allow him to respond to those questions that you're going to send. But also like our page, follow, so that you don't miss the programs that we bring you here on SlyMedia TV. Like I said, we have engineer Jabulani Midzi, representing the Zimbabwe diaspora community. And let me welcome you to the program. Welcome to SlyMedia.
Thank you, Mr. Shumwane.
Yes.
I'm very, very, very glad to be here. And I'm very impressed with what I've seen here. I had not realized that we've got platforms like this in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
So it is very encouraging. You can see that we're going somewhere as a country.
Yeah. So let's start with your background. Let's start with your background, and to say that you are an engineer. We want to deal with your qualifications, then where you are based now at the moment.
Okay. I'm a Zimbabwean. Masvingo is my hometown. Chiwi is my rural home.
Oh, you my neighbor.
Yeah, your neighbor possibly.
Yes.
And then, I was trained here in Zimbabwe. Initially, I started as a fitter machinist. I was trained at Cisco Steel before it became defunct. And then I worked at gas mine in engineering. And then from there, I went to South Africa. I worked at power stations, ESCOM power stations, where we do outages, for these units.
Yeah.
Like the new units we're building in Wanke now. That is the kind of stuff we're doing. From there, I went into Mozambique. I did a lot of projects there since 2006 up to now. We did titanium mines, processing plants, a coal mine, port terminals, where all this coal lives there by the sea at Nakala Port. I was also in Zambia. We did projects at Mopani copper mines. Yeah. We did what we call a new synclinorium concentrator, right? The construction and installation of all mechanical equipment and electrical equipment and the testing of all the equipment. And currently, I'm with Moz Structural Steel, a company in Mozambique, and we are doing maintenance work and construction work at Vale Coal Mine in Mozambique. And also, we've worked at Mozal. So most of our work now is in Mozambique.
Is in Mozambique.
Yeah.
Right. You spoke about the times that you were at Cisco Steel and Mashaba Mine. Just to share to us the experiences during those days.
Yeah, during those days, I would say we were the fortunate ones because I started my apprenticeship in 1989. During those days, things were really good.
Yeah.
In terms of employment, in terms of training. So when people say we have 42 years of trouble, I beg to differ because we had a very good 12 years. From 1980 to 1992, things were good. So in my view, I remove those 12 years as years of struggle or trouble. To be frank and to be fair to the government. I think we didn't have problems from 1980.
Yeah.
It is not fair. Coming to your question about the experiences, places like Cisco Steel, for example, Cisco Steel was known as the most important training hub. It was Cisco Steel and National Railways.
Yeah.
And those were the two biggest companies dealing with apprenticeship training, and the training was top-notch. So we were some of those, what I can call now, fortunate ones, who really went through the best training that was available. Yeah.
So you say the first 12 years of independence, the country was okay, you enjoyed those years. But we see a flip of the page to what we are today. And I want you to relate to that, to say, where do you think as a country we went wrong?
I think as a country, if I could quote the former President Robert Mugabe,
Yeah.
I watched him in one of the interviews. The biggest problem we had was inexperience at independence. Okay, so I remember he said, according to him, the independence came a bit too early for them as guerrillas. They thought maybe we were going to get independent around 1981 or 1980. So when they got into office in 1980, soon after the Lancaster House Agreement, it was a bit of a shock to them. Remember, these people were in the bush, and now they must leave the guns, and immediately they must assume office in towns. Some of them were just guerrillas, they've never been in town, let alone to know the instruments of government. So he admitted that at that point, I think he was responding to the issue of why he was a proponent of this principle of reconciliation.
Yeah.
And why they integrated the Rhodesian army with the Zimbabwean, with the ZAPU and ZANU armies, and why they kept some of the ministers. You remember the famous Dennis Norman, the guy who was in charge of agriculture.
Yeah.
So the president then said we needed to incorporate these people to help us to get the required experience, right? So from that point, we had a group of leaders meaning very well for the country, but having very little knowledge in terms of governance.
Yeah.
All right. So we could say they were riding on the momentum of the previous economy. So naturally, we wouldn't have any problems from 1980, apart then from the issue of the internal fights that happened, the conflict in Matabeleland.
Yeah.
Right. So the economy was generally all right, but as you could remember, what led to the Willowgate scandal, the first major corruption issue that erupted in the country. It was also a result of people having no experience, getting too used to the new things that they got used to now, and then started misusing. So corruption started more or less around that time, and then we had the Santura Commission, and the Willowgate claimed a number of high-profile people. You remember the Maurice Nyakumbos, up to the point of committing suicide after he was confronted by the then Prime Minister. So the turning point was, because of this inexperience, the 12 years I'm talking about, fast forward to 1991, right? By then I was in my fourth year. I think I was in my third year. I'll tell you, I used to have my budget for the month. It was $21. When I get paid, I go to OK Bazaars, I fill up my 2 trolleys, I take them home, I'm done for the month. That's how cheap life was at that stage, 1991. So I was still an apprentice by then. So even as an apprentice, you were able to feed your family, to buy everything you wanted, more or less. So then came the famous ISAP. Again, our court president, former President Mugabe, and he said, I think we were naive, meaning government, to take this recommendation from IMF, wholesome, and just moved in and started to retrench people and hoping that they are adjusting the economy is going to pick up. And then, so that sort of inexperience in terms of governance continued up to that stage. Right. So from there, put that inexperience together with the context of what you call now counseling, post-trauma disorder. You need people to be counseled after going through traumatic experiences like the war, right? But you see, because there was no time, all our leaders, they never got treatment for trauma, right? So
one person now will ask, are they the rightful people to lead, or were they the rightful people to lead this country? You're speaking of the traumas of the war.
Yes.
And obviously without the counseling, people will now, and even some of them had not even a chance to, had gone through in studies in administration, leadership.
Correct.
And they are coming straight from the bush, and they become ministers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember, the war was about power, political power. Although the main issue was the land, but you cannot have land without power, without political power. And everybody was excited. And if you are the governing party, even if it's your home, it doesn't matter your experience or not, you still want to govern. Right. So they had to do the job because the job was supposed to be done.
So now let's go straight to the core of the matter, issue of elections. You feel that elections must be suspended, and we want to know why. Why are you thinking like that? Because elections are a tenet of democracy. Elections are part of a developmental process.
Okay. Let me take you to a quotation by Ian Smith. He was commenting about the issue of elections. And he said, what we believed in was a belief in a responsible majority rule. He was commenting on the issue of why he doesn't seem to be interested in letting black people get involved in the voting process. Remember, when he declared UDI in 1965, they later declared our country to become a republic, right, in 1970, after the referendum of 1969, right. And then one of his famous statements was that they could not give the blacks an equal vote with the whites because he says if somebody does not understand the issues at stake in the country, it's useless to give that person a vote. So that's why they were justifying that, okay, the whites, you leave the blacks just to constitute about 10% of all the total votes. But the whites, it doesn't matter that they were the least in terms of number.
So is it from the same pedestal that you are saying let's suspend the elections as a country?
Right, more or less, because I'm realizing a disturbing trend that we might be in that state of mind where we are not ready as a people to understand what an election is. So when we don't understand what we are doing, when we're being pushed by emotions, particularly anger, bitterness, those are very strong emotions that affect your ability to reason. So you're pushed by this anger and bitterness, then you don't expect to bring anything out of it. You just want to get rid of one another. Okay, let's take the classic example of the former President Mugabe. Okay, people rush him, Mugabe must go, must go, must go. Okay, he's gone. What do you have to do? Now, the same people, oh, Mugabe was better. You understand? What does that say about us as a people? Right. But then I'll give you background to why we are not ready and why we are divided. Because we are too polarized to be able to go into a free and fair and civilized election. I understand we've got two sides. We've the opposition, we've got the ruling party. Right. From our perspective as professionals, some of whom are in the diaspora, some of whom are local, we don't really subscribe to partisan politics. When we listen to politicians speak, we look for substance because we know it is the substance that brings the country forward.
Yeah.
So one of the main issues that we hear coming from the opposition side is that we should be able to have a society where we have civilized debate, right? Especially on the issues of election.
Yes.
Right. You have civilized debate, and whoever wins the election is congratulated, and whoever loses, magnanimously also congratulates the one who wins, accepts it. It's a very important ideal. It's what is
ideal situation.
Yeah.
But we are practical people. Our background is engineering. Engineering is a practical subject. We look at practical matters and practical realities. Because the only way to solve a problem from an engineering perspective is to break it down into its most fundamental parts. And then you identify where the link is the weakest, and then you solve it from there. So when we break this one down, the ideal that we are looking for, which is a situation where we have a civilized debate.
A contestation of ideas.
A contestation of ideas.
Yeah.
Like they say, the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
We are not ready as a people to do that. We are not yet mature to do that. We are too bitter. We are too angry.
But
We are
where
too
is this
polarized.
Where is this coming from? Where is the anger coming from? Where is
Right.
because this is, I
That's
think,
the
is
million-dollar question.
Yeah, it's most important.
And I'm going to address that one. Right. This polarization and the anger is coming from our interpretation, which is different, of our problems, or the source of our problems.
Some will say the anger is coming from politicians themselves, our leaders, because when they stand up on a podium, they spew hate speech.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is 100% correct. Now, let's put the whole thing into perspective. I agree with you on that point, number one, where you say the anger comes from the politicians. We are also in agreement as professionals. We are not happy with the language that we hear coming out of the rallies and the podiums where the political leaders are addressing their people. Even if you check on comments, social media comments, there's a lot of vulgarity, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of bitterness. Why? Because we have been grouped into two camps unofficially. Everyone now in Zimbabwe thinks either you are opposition or you are there's no one who is allowed to be a free citizen who thinks about issues. The number one issue is partisan politics. So whatever you say, it will be taken in the context of partisan politics. If, for instance, what I'm going to say now about the problems,
the suspension of elections.
The suspension of elections. Someone is going to say, oh, okay, he's pro
ZANU-PF.
ZANU-PF. Someone will interpret that to mean he is pro opposition.
Yes.
But
But are you not
it's
pro
neither
ZANU-PF?
near- No, I'm not pro anybody in this particular issue we're talking about when it comes to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
There's no need to be pro ZANU-PF or pro MDC. I mean, now it's Triple C, basically. So, with all due respect to the other smaller political parties, we recognize that they're there. But we have a clear division. I think what the elections of, these by-elections of March 26 did to us was to clarify who is the opposition mouthpiece. Now we know that Triple C, led by Advocate Chamisa, is the real representative of the opposition voice. So we have two clear leaders here, President Mnangagwa and Advocate Chamisa. The rest, they can choose who they want to work with there, but with all due respect to their rights, to have political parties and canvas for supporters, but what is clear to us as professionals in the diaspora is that we have two horses that are in a race. Right, these two horses are the ones that are responsible for whether we are going to succeed or we are going to fail. And for us to be ready to have that conversation, our projection is that we are only going to be ready to have a civilized election debate in 2033. That is our projection.
Meaning from now on,
Meaning
we suspend elections.
From now on, we are petitioning the president, President Idi Mnangagwa, the CCC leader, Advocate Chamisa, that they must sit down and agree on a moratorium on elections for 2 seasons. 2023, no elections. 2028, no elections. Then we will have elections in 2023.
But there's a problem.
What do we do there?
There's a problem. There's a problem because people will
problem?
say it is our right to choose our leaders, people who will lead us, and for you to then come and say let's suspend the elections is taking away that right from us.
Okay, not at all. I'm not taking away the right from anybody. Right. The legal experts will deal with. Let me give you the concept that we have. Okay. What we are saying is, for the avoidance of doubt, if we want to have an election for the sake of an election, okay, we can just go ahead. But I'll tell you that the results we know already is a disputed election in many respects. But I'll come back to the disputed election part of it.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to explain is what you just asked now. What we want is, let's say 2023, they agree, these guys, that President Mnangagwa carries on in office until 2028. 2028, Advocate Chamisa gets into office until 2033.
2033, yeah.
And until 2033, yes. Right. Why? There are 2 critical issues there. So responding to the issue of the right, that we don't take away the right. This is a suggestion. And we are saying if the 2 big guys decide that let us agree to have a government of national unity, starting from today, not next year, today, okay? Let's have a government of national unity. Let's agree, if we want to keep our constitutional requirement to hold elections, then you agree that, okay, let's divide the constituencies that are there in the country. Right. Let's take the 210 constituencies, for example. Okay, let's agree. They agree on a percentage. If they say, let's take off the 10 out of the 200. Let's give these small opposition parties, which are part of Poland, some of whom have never even gotten 1 seat so far. And if they can buy into the idea of postponing the elections, then you give each one of them one constituency. Then these 2 main parties, they divide the rest amongst themselves amicably. And then they go through the process of registration through ZEC, but they know, like we have done with the proportional representation of the Senate, they agree, okay, this constituency, Triple C is not fielding a candidate. It's going to be ZANU-PF. Right. If it happens that there is another Zimbabwean who is against the idea and he wants to contest, okay, fine. We know the ZANU-PF people and Triple C people will team up to vote for the Triple C guy. In a certain constituency, Triple C people and the ZANU-PF people will vote for a ZANU-PF guy. That is if there's been that requirement. Because if we go to the Constitutional Court for registration and there's no one opposing the candidature of any of those MPs or of the president, by law, he's already duly elected. Right? So if that agreement can be reached, then we save the people of Zimbabwe the problem of a disputed election, because it's already disputed as we speak right now. The Triple C has already laid out everything that they require as reforms, and one of them is the ZEC issue.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that these reforms that they're looking for, they're not going to happen. That's what we see from a professional, neutral position sitting there, and we're looking for solutions, not emotions. We know it's not going to happen.
Obviously, I will follow up to say, because in an ideal society, right, if really there are reforms that are supposed to happen, why are they not happening? But before you respond to that, because we want to also be reading questions and comments from our listeners, I want you to when we come back, then respond to that first.
Okay.
Then we respond to other. Yes.
Okay.
Anxious Chilepwa says elections is part of development. Bill Mpofu, elections are more important than anything. We really need elections. We don't want any developments from ZANU. Why today? Why after 42 years? President Mnangagwa himself, he has been in government for 42 years. What did he do for us? ZANU is promise maker and never fulfill their promise. We want elections done. We can't go anywhere without elections. That's David Chikwasha, Gift Jaricha. We need elections to develop Zimbabwe. Now Zimbabweans are being killed in South Africa. Can't even come and remove ZANU-PF, which are causing all these troubles. I will feel pity for Zimbabweans who are in South Africa choosing to die for material things. Zimbabweans must come home and vote to remove ZANU-PF. Some of the questions that are coming from our listeners, but I wanted you to start with the issue of an ideal society, where we are saying if really there are issues to deal with, for us to reform as a people, as a country, and as a system, why are we not reforming? Why is it not going to happen from the lenses that you're talking about?
Okay, that's why I said that ideal situation that we're talking about, we envision it as well.
Yeah.
But we have already given you the timelines that we think as a people, if we start now to work on our differences the way we are suggesting, we will only be ready to do that in 2033. Why? Look at the stalemate that is there. And I want to say, I must hasten to say, there are legitimate issues that are raised by ZANU-PF. There are also legitimate issues raised by MDC. Okay. Let me start with the ZANU-PF legitimate issues. Right. I've already told you about our history coming from the war.
Yes.
And the involvement of foreign forces, starting even from the Gukura Winter era. We know there was a big foreign hand in that. Then you come to the ISAP issue, there was a big foreign hand in that. Then you come to the land reform of 2000, right? Let's say 97 to 2000, right? There is a big foreign hand in that. Why did Mr. Blair renege on the promises of the Lancaster House Agreement? And what worries us, because we are looking for substance and consistency, what worries us is the silence from the opposition side to condemn just that act of reneging, because it is a very big issue if we make an agreement and I don't honor it. For example, today we had an agreement for me to come to this session, and just imagine the inconvenience if I didn't come. After you've done all the preparations, gone through, it's a huge issue. So from a ZANU-PF perspective, we understand that this is a legitimate concern that they had. And then they were pushed into a corner in 2000, right? The opposition, which came out of the labor movement, led by Gibson Sibanda and Morgan Tsvangirai, right? the labor had their issues, but the labor issues were coming from the Aesop story. That's where the hardships and people are being. So now there was a convergence of interests between the labor and the white commercial farmers now, because the government had decided that, okay, since those guys have reneged on the promise to compensate these guys, we are going ahead legislatively to take this land without compensation, because we don't have the money to compensate them. And then they knew through that referendum that if this referendum passes through, we are done. This guy's going to get land. And then they moved en masse to join the opposition. I'm talking about the commercial farmers, right? They moved en masse to join the opposition. They were pursuing two different interests. The opposition were pursuing labor-related, economic-related issues to stabilize the economy. But these guys were protecting the land. And then they came together, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, or maybe he was naive as a human being, or he was inexperienced, Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai, may his soul rest in peace. Then he opened his arms to them, which is a good thing to do. But he didn't realize the macro politics at play between the government and the white commercial farmers. So then, after this incident of Britain changing, then the comrades went back to what they know best, which is war. And who declared the war? The former president himself. Openly, he says, you guys, because of what we have done, we have teamed up with the opposition, we've seen open checkbooks being signed, we have seen you voting no on the constitution that will give us the right to get land. So by that act, you have declared yourselves enemies of Zimbabwe. This was his words. You have declared yourselves as enemies of Zimbabwe. Nokudaro chava chimurenga. Meaning, it's now war. So when the head of state says it's now war, don't think it's a joke. If you think it's a joke, you are just deceiving yourself. There's nothing that a head of state speaks that is not policy. It could be off the cuff, but you know this influences everybody that follows. So in that context, by aligning themselves with the interests of these commercial farmers to the point of calling for sanctions. I remember myself watching Honorable Morgan Tsvangirai himself on TV saying it's better for Zimbabwe to be put under sanctions because it will force the government to behave and all that and all that and all that. Right.
But there are reasons. Well, I don't want us to divert a lot from the issue of suspension of elections.
Okay.
But I wanted to just say to you, their issue was that there were human rights abuses. That's why they then said the sanctions must be imposed on this country.
Correct. What you must understand is the context. You see, if anything is done, there's nothing that is wrong or right until you define the context. Right. When you declare a war by nature, it suspends human rights. If anyone declares war,
but there are rules even in war.
There are rules in war.
Yeah.
You understand? Right. But what I'm saying is you are expecting a nation at war to be 100% correct on human rights. There are a lot of them that will be violated. That is a guarantee. That's what we see from a practical point of view. That's what I'm saying. We look at things practically. It's just like going to Ukraine today and expect that, oh, okay, Russia is going to behave nicely and kill these people properly. War is war. So why did these guys declare war? They were reacting to being cheated by the British. And that is a legitimate issue. And what the opposition was supposed to do was not to call for sanctions. Was supposed to say, okay, we understand. Let's make an appeal to the British to reconsider their position and try to fulfill what they are now refusing to fulfill.
Yeah, let's assume your analogy is correct.
Because I want to go to the opposition also and give you their credit lines.
The analogy that you just given us, let's assume it's correct to say that the former president declared war. The question will be, on who did he declare war? On his people?
No, on the whites. He was declaring it to those commercial farmers. He was talking to them, but now it's war. And what's going to happen is we're going to take back our land, and there's no compensation. And you know, once you do that, you lose control of what is happening on the ground. Even you today, if you start a strike here and you mobilize people to strike, you're not going to stop someone who wants to break a house, someone who wants to break into a shop. So the most intelligent leader will avoid ever the starting of a war.
Yeah.
Because the war, once it starts, is a veiled fire. It gets out of control. You understand? Right. So on the side of the opposition, so the ruling party has got a legitimate issue about the sanctions and the betrayal that they suffered from the British. So the problem with the opposition was that they now sided with that betrayal by going on to call for sanctions and maintaining them. So thereby aligning themselves with the now enemies of the people. And then these sanctions, in reality, they hurt every one of us. Otherwise, they wouldn't put them in there. Who would sit in America, in Congress, to vote for something that is useless?
Yeah, let's move on to the side of the opposition. You
The
say
side of
that
the
they
opposition.
also have legit issues that they are
Good.
bringing.
The opposition has got legitimate issues, right? But the legitimacy of their issues is on the counting of the vote. It's a very legitimate issue that if you decide to go into election, okay, by deciding to get into that election, you are binding yourself to say, whether I win or lose, I'll bind by the results. Right. So the opposition has got a legitimate. When we look at it, we may not have empirical evidence in terms of the figures, but from the reports, you can look at things like the Excel gate by Professor Moyo and what we saw in 2008. I think there is credence to that allegation that elections get rigged. We see that, and I think we acknowledge that. We might not know the machinations, but there is a high possibility that that happens. But when we look at the bigger picture, we look at it in the context of a war. And a war is rarely fair. So as long as you are in a state of war, don't expect fairness. It's being naive. And that's what we are telling the people of Zimbabwe, that don't continue on this route of naivety, because this war has never ended. Because as we speak, practically, we know who controls power in this land. It is our security. And I must commend them for being consistent. Why do I say that?
I already see a problem there.
You see a problem?
Yes, because if the security sector is the one that is controlling power in this country, when it is supposed to be the people who choose their leaders, we have a problem.
Right. What is going to happen is we are going to suggest, after this we're discussing about, there is number one issue on the Zimbabwe problem, what we call the national issue number one, which is our identity. Right. You are talking about elections.
Yeah.
Right. But the question, let me pose a question. Is Zimbabwe a republic? If it is a republic, what kind of a republic is it? But in our view, we see that Zimbabwe is not a republic.
How?
That is where the problem is.
How?
Zimbabwe is a theocracy. Right. A theocracy is a government where that head of government is appointed by God. You understand? A republic is a government of the people, by the people. But in Zimbabwe, there's this conflict. I want you to notice it nicely. Look at what the pastors and the apostles say. Look at what everybody says about when someone gets into office. Just recently, I was reading, or I heard, someone saying Advocate Chamisa was appointed by God. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay? I've also heard some prophets or religious leaders
Saying similar sentiments.
saying President Mnangagwa was anointed by God. You understand? Right. So the question is, as a country, do we really know who appoints the leader of the country? Is it the people or is God? Because at the end of the day, this one will tell you that what God has put in place, no one is going to remove. And this other one is saying what God has put in place, no one is going to remove. And there you are, all of you streaming to the polling station.
No. Let's go back to the question of the security, because I think this is an important question for us as citizens.
Okay.
To say that if the security sector is the one that is controlling power in this country, it means whoever then gets to the number one office must have the support of the security sector.
100%.
And
you are right on point. And this is where the maturity we are talking about comes. This is where understanding practicalities and theories, right? The theory is that you can get there even without the authority of the security clearance. You are just lying to yourself. From independence, the country was brought by the security forces, right? It was never given to a civilian. Since 1980,
yeah,
it was always controlled by the security forces. I'll give you an example. You may think that in 1980 we got independence through the vote. If Smith had won that vote, I can assure you today that the war would have continued. We only went into that vote because we were assured of the numbers. We knew, okay, we've got the majority.
So what you're saying is, as long as we have elections in this country, we are not going to be seeing a leader from the opposition, because it is not about elections. That's what you're saying.
Right. Let me quantify that. Okay. What I'm saying is, we may have a leader from the opposition, provided the leader of the opposition is responsible enough to understand this reality and to actively seek dialogue and understanding with the people that have got the power. I'll take you back to 2000. General Zinawashe just came up on TV and said, okay, we can see the swelling of this support and the protests. Because remember, as far as ZANU-PF is concerned, what you may see as support for opposition, they interpret it as protest. They are not saying it's a genuine vote. You understand? Where we are having those exchange of ideas on a level playing field. They're saying as long as there's interference in the form of these sanctions, the playing field is already not level at that point. Then the opposition starts to see that the playing field is not level during elections. But ZANU-PF has already declared that the playing level is not the playing field is not level. So, from both perspectives, these guys, they are saying ZAC and reforms is not level. ZANU-PF has already said we don't even care what's going to happen there because the elections are already on an uneven playing field. So, when he said it's a straitjacket, what did he mean? I said, I say to them, they are consistent. How are they consistent? In 2008, we know that the opposition had an upper hand. That was the first election that it was declared as a winner, although then we had a runoff. But at least there was an announcement that Morgan Tsvangirai had beaten President Mugabe, but he didn't get enough votes to go beyond the 50%.
Yeah.
Right. But that admission was historic, that an opposition leader had defeated President Mugabe. Then the runoff came. And what did Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai realize? He didn't participate. He withdrew, actually. He had participated, but then he withdrew in the runoff. And listen to his statement. He says, I thought this was an election. But now I have realized that it is a war. That is a pregnant statement. And that is what Advocate Chamisa should have taken from President Tsvangirai, his president in their party, when he took over. He should have understood that the context here, we are in a war situation. And that is why he even eventually agreed. But I take my hat off for him because he managed to put the people first. Because he realized the reality on the ground, that no. If I carry on, this play field is not leveled from both sides. So let me do this for the sake of the people. And he withdrew, and he went into an inclusive government for the sake of the people. The only mistake he did was he remained an opposition leader while in inclusive government. What he should have done, which could have healed everything for us, or maybe could have even ushered him into office in 2013, he should have had a good working relationship with the securocrats and the president, and then they were going to allow him to lead because he had the popularity. But then he kept the sanctions on, and he kept on preaching of a new dispensation in the oppositions. So he missed it there, and he missed a huge opportunity for us as a people. And we are saying we cannot miss it again.
Okay, actually, people are also saying that in 2017,
yes,
after the goings on in 2017, we, as a country, we missed the opportunities. Where, as President Mnangagwa came on, he should have actually called everyone and say, let's build our country, bring the opposition into government, and we wouldn't be talking about the things that we're talking about.
I agree with you. You know what? It's again, unfortunately, I think it was the death of Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai that deprived us of that. Why do I say that? When we are looking at it from a neutral point of view, I think we saw on television, we were seeing things on television. I think I saw 2 or 3 visits to Morgan Tsvangirai's house by President Mnangagwa and Vice President Chiwenga. Right. And the results of those visits, Morgan Tsvangirai was given his benefits as the Prime Minister. Mr. Tsvangirai was given the benefit of the state taking over his medical bills. Mr. Tsvangirai was even given a house. That used to be a state house for where he was staying, state paying, and they gave him. That overture to us who are looking without really being attached, we see, we suspect there must have been some discussions going on there. Why? Based on what? Because the reality, from an engineering perspective, the practical reality was that there was no way, after getting into power in November 2017, the Securocrats could relinquish power in July 2018. I mean, that was not.
No, it was not. It's not the question of relinquishing power. It's the question of bringing everyone into the question.
Let me get to that point.
Because we are almost coming to the end of the program, I want us to deal with this quickly so that we deal with two other questions. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let me address that very quickly. There was no one to deal with at that point, because in the opposition ranks, they were also stampeding to succeed Tsvangirai. You understand? Who to talk to? Advocate Chamisa is fighting Advocate Monzora and Maikupe. Right. So there was division. We had that opportunity there for them to sit and talk. That's why we are saying the opportunity is there now. Now we have it. Because we know there's Advocate Chamisa, there's President Mnangagwa. These two guys must sit down seriously if they want our lives to be better. But if they are worried about the personal, which we don't brush aside, the presidential position is power. Power is sweet. We know.
Okay. Like I said, that we are coming to the end of the program. Someone here says you should be talking about diaspora vote instead of asking for suspension of elections. You are in the diaspora. Why are you talking about suspension of elections?
Diaspora vote or no diaspora vote, the result is disputed already. That's what I'm trying to make people aware, that this dispute is already there, and it's better for the young man, our advocate Chamisa, to humble himself and go and sit down with the old man who is his father and say, Father, how do we proceed? How do we do? I'll give you an example of in the Bible. David was given all these apparatus of the new state by God to hand over to his son Solomon. And David is another son, Absalom. Absalom decided to fight against his father. At this rate, where we're going, Advocate Chamisa is on the path of Absalom, and we're asking him to come to the path of Solomon, because we hear stories about, they say President Mnangagwa has got blood in his hands, they don't have blood in their hands. But if I take you back to that David issue I'm saying, God said to David wanted to build everything for God, and he said to him, look, David, you cannot build for me because as a warrior, your hands are full of blood. But what's going to happen is your son, Solomon, is going to build the temple for me. But there's a very important bridge there. And God said, but I will give you all the measurements, the requirements of this temple, so that you will hand over this to the son, to Solomon. And he did that. All the things were given to David, and then David passed them on to Solomon. We are talking about a national transition here in terms of succession, right? We're not talking about partisan succession. We are saying, now we need to move from the old guard and give this to the new generation, right? But that process is a handover. It needs a sweet, it's not...
that question we spoke about,
yes,
where we said the security sector is, you said the security sector is controlling power. Do you think that the transition you're talking about, 2033, where you're saying in 2028, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying then President Mnangagwa hands over to Advocate Chamisa, do you think the security sector will be sitting and will accept, allow that to happen?
The security sector is part of President Mnangagwa and President and Vice President Chiwenga, right? If they agree to this, and the young man behaves himself as a young man, and he learns from them from now until 2028, it's possible.
Okay.
Because they are looking for a generation to which they must hand over.
All right. Let's read a few, then we close. Welling Sahai Marudza says, or responding to someone saying that it's his opinions to take from ZANU-PF people. What do you have to give after decades of power destroying the country? Another one here says, what was the purpose of calling for referendum if they only expected one outcome of the vote? Then another one says, what moral standing does Midzi have to tell us about what is happening in Zimbabwe when he is in the diaspora? Is he not a coward that he ran away from his country and he is talking about suspension of elections?
Yeah, I'm not a coward because my family is in Zimbabwe. I'm part of the diaspora that remits foreign currency every month to my family. Right. For information, there is a large group of people in the diaspora who would rather have these hardships continue because the money is more valuable. The money you bring from the diaspora, when it comes here, you do much more than you would do normally. So for me to stand up and say, no, let us have a working Zimbabwe, a working economy. Let's go and work with, listen to me, we are saying we want to work with the government. We are ready. But the government must be united. We need a unit first, then elections. There's no point in doing the same thing we have done many times and expecting a different result. That's what they classically define as being mad. So we don't want to be like a mad nation. We know that when there's a dispute of this type, we're just wasting time. And we're saying, let's not waste time. Advocate Chamisa in 2018 declared to the whole world that I know this time I'm not going to be cheated. We have put everything in place. Maybe they hoped to get that subpoena for the Excel gate thing, but it didn't happen. That's the reality. Then what happens after 2018? People are crying and saying, but it didn't help us. You understand? And today, he is saying the same thing. This time, guys, these are jokes that you are trying to do. We are telling you
elections are useless in this country.
At this moment, if we don't bring the country together and heal the people and solve this problem, if the opposition carries on this trajectory, the absolute trajectory, it's not going to help us because they are not going to give them this country.
There we go. Elections are useless. We must not waste time going for elections. But look, we know you have different opinions. We have different ways of looking at things. I had Jabulani Midzi here representing a diaspora community, a Zimbabwe diaspora community. He's based in Mozambique, and this is what they feel must happen, that elections must be suspended 2023, 2028, and we only then must have elections in 2033 going forward. They think that that is going to be a solution to the challenges that we are facing as a country. That is going to be one of the methods that we can use to heal our people and heal our country. My name is Perfect Longwane. We will continue to have these discussions on SlyMedia TV. But please, let me once again remind you. Yeah.
One important thing that I want us to remember. I just wanted to comment on what we feel about what Prophet Makandiwa did by inviting the president to his church.
Okay.
And that to us is a signal of a healing nation. If God gave us that signal to start healing, because he's saying, start to focus on the positives that you have as a people and start to give each other credit for the good that you are doing. And that man did that. If we can replicate that energy, that positive energy, I can quote you a situation where he said, Kunamaya Mnangagwa, Mama, the work that you are doing. And he says, Mama. You know, when you get someone appreciated for the good that they are doing, you put yourself in the good stead to even correct them. So I can tell you today that of all the prophets that are making noise in this country, if there is one who can find the ear or can get the ear of the president, now it's Prophet Makandiwa. Because if he goes there and said, Mr. President, I told you to go and work. We pray for 6 hours a day. While I was praying, God said this to me. And he tells him, this President Mnangagwa is going to have an ear. And what is critical is, people must remember, it's an intimate discussion between the prophet and the president. Even when David was being rebuked by God, Nathan did not climb on top of the rock and start shouting that David had taken Uriah's wife. God sent him there, and they had an intimate discussion, and he corrected him intimately. Same applies with Saul. Samuel was speaking to Saul. God has rejected you for what you have done. But it's not in public. But the people who want to divide us and continue this bitterness and anger, they would want a prophet to call the president and then start shouting from the top of his pulpit. It's not correct. Let us learn from what Prophet Makandiwa has done. Each of us, from family level, start to be positive to your own wife, to your own children. The good that they are doing, magnify it, and then minimize the small ones that they are doing. I gave you an analogy of a full a glass of water. There's one will say the glass is half full, the other one will say the glass is half empty. So all of us, we are not complete. There's no one who is perfect. President Mnangagwa is not perfect. Everybody is not. So let's focus on the positives. That's why I'm asking Advocate Chamisa to humble himself and allow, don't be fooled by this popularity. Go there and humble yourself before the big men. And I'm also asking President Mnangagwa to open his arms to receive Advocate Chamisa if he decides to come and ask for dialogue.
Okay. We can talk until tomorrow, but we have come to the end of this episode of the program. Like I promised, we are going to be continuing with these discussions where we are looking at the national question, we are looking at the challenges that we are facing as a country, and how are we going to deal with these challenges and make sure that we bring solutions to the challenges that we are facing. My name is Perfect Hlongwane once again. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hlongwane.
Hoping that we are going to see you again.
My last word is, please, SlyMedia is a wonderful organization. I've had a first-hand experience, and I'm asking all of us in the diaspora to channel our ideas, speak to the nation through them, and let's advance their cause as well. They need resources to look after all this equipment that they've got. So we should support them in cash and kind. They are doing a very good job to create a platform where we as Zimbabweans can speak to each other and tell each other the truth. So SlyMedia, I want to thank you very much. May God bless you, and we will do our utmost to support you. Those of us who are advertising stuff, let's advertise on SlyMedia also and promote them.
Let me also say to our viewers, yes, this is coming from him. We did not tell him to say that. Lest you think that we had caucused before. But anyway, we have come to the end of the program. Have a wonderful day.
When you think of having the best, world-class, hassle-free, corporate or personal events, Think real sound. Offering a wide range of products and services with different sizes for LED and TV screens to suit different occasions. There's state-of-the-art PA systems that give you real sound. When it comes to event lighting, real sound is the best, not to mention the sparkles machines. Want to appear in another planet? Try the cloud and smoke machines. There's also top executive furniture for corporate events. For all your virtual meetings, look no further. Get in touch for a free quote for your next event. Contact Real Sound via email or phone number. Real Sound, just passion.